Hi, this is Kim Hammer with the devotion taken from the book of Judges, chapter 4, beginning with verse 8, going through the end of the chapter. We pick up where Deborah has called up a man named Barak in order to go against the battle of a man named Sisera. Sisera had 900 iron chariots and a large army amassed to go up against the nation of Israel. Israel had gone back into their evil ways, and after being under suppression to Sisera for an extended period of time, who oppressed them severely, we find that the nation of Israel cried out unto the Lord, and God, through the prophetess Deborah, delivered a message that he would give over to the nation of Israel the army of Sisera. Deborah gave to Barak the charge to lead the nation of Israel into the battle of Sisera, but we find that he, being Barak, put a condition upon going into battle. He said to Deborah, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I will not go." Now remember that Deborah had already promised to him that God was going to give the victory, and we find that he failed to put his confidence in God. This was not a battle of the sexes, male versus female, or any of that kind of stuff that sometimes people want to make this story about. In reality, what it was a question of, are you going to trust God that when he says he's going to give you the victory over something, do you put a condition on it, or do you take God at his word? That's the point of the story. Barak did not put his complete, unconditional trust in God, even though God had promised to give him the victory. Instead, he placed it on the reliance of a human going with him into battle, when in reality, he needed to put his trust in God to go into the battle with him. Now, as we find as the story goes on, he became faint-hearted. And in that moment that he became faint-hearted, it's like you and I, that whenever we become faint-hearted, that is a dangerous period of time where Satan will put things into our mind. And that's why we need to remain strong in our confidence in God, that if he promises us to give us the victory, that we need to trust God that he's going to deliver on his word. As the story goes on, we find that Deborah conceded, but she also made this statement. She said, "But because of the way you are going about this, the honor will not be yours. Instead, it will be given unto a woman." Now, some people would think that Deborah was referring to herself because she'd agreed to go with Barak into battle, when in reality, as we see the story plays out, it wasn't Deborah that she was prophesying would receive the glory or the credit, but instead it would be given to somebody else. We find that as the story goes on, that Barak did defeat Sisera, and that as Sisera fled from the battle, he was the only one that was left. Everyone else had been wiped out. And he came to the tent of an old family friend, and in the tent we find that it was the wife of an individual that he knew. He came in, he relaxed, he got comfortable, he fell asleep because the Bible said he was exhausted, and we find that Jael, the woman who lived in the tent, took a tent stake and drove it through his head and killed him. And thus what Deborah had prophesied came true, that the victory would ultimately be delivered by a woman. And so it was. It was not Deborah, even though she had prophesied that it would be that victory would be won because of the actions of a woman, but it was actually Jael who took the life of Sisera and finished the battle off. Now here's the question I want you to think about whenever we look at how Barak handled the situation. And here's the question. When your honor is at stake, ask yourself this question: is what you gained by not being courageous worth what you lost by being faint-hearted? Is what you gained by not being courageous worth what you lost by being faint-hearted? Barak thought he would save his life if Deborah went with him, but in reality, Barak lost his honor because he made what God had already said he would achieve dependent upon Deborah going with him. If Barak would have just took God at his word as it was delivered through Deborah, he would have been the one that would have been accredited for the victory. But in reality, the victory was given to somebody else because he became faint-hearted and did not trust God. So the question is this: what are you giving up in a moment of being faint-hearted?